U.S. President Donald Trump's proposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, which are set to come into effect today, will be paused for a month. This cooling down period comes after Mexico and Canada agreed to take measures to improve border security and clamp down on drug trafficking. Canada and Mexico are actually the two largest trading partners for the U.S., and both had announced retaliatory trade measures if Trump followed through on his plan. A trade war is not going to bode well for us as South Africa. It's not going to bode well, in fact, for the rest of the world. So how do we prepare for the likely consequences? Professor Malte Brosig is with the Department of International Relations at Wits. Prof, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So President Donald Trump has now paused these tariffs on Canada and Mexico while the countries take measures to improve border security and clamp down on drug trafficking. Was this the whole idea, to put them under pressure?
I would. I'm not bold enough to actually make any claims about what is going on in Trump's mind, but it looks from the outside that he applied a almost classical shock and awe tactic. So with spectacular announcements at the beginning, you kind of threaten and intimidate your opponent so that they are so scared that they feel urged to give him something, right? And to a certain extent, that seemed to have worked. But at the moment, when you think about AGOA, I think everyone in South Africa is already, in alert that, something is coming up here. So we'll have to talk about it and how to strategize what to do next year.
Yeah, and speaking of strategizing, nothing stops President Donald Trump from using the same tactic on us. So how do we prepare? Is there even anything we could do strategically?
That is, one of the messages from this episode here is that he's certainly not shying away, even, playing hard with one of the closest countries and friends, which is Canada, obviously. So domestically, South Africa or Africa doesn't really figure that high in the US. I always say that, well, if one is lucky somehow, we're so unimportant that it doesn't matter economically that much. But, as we have the G20 also in the countries, I think South Africa is getting a lot of attention also because of Elon Musk, for example. And I think, one of the better strategies is to simply and, quietly reaching out to the Trump environment and step by step establishing relationship with them so that we are, having a conversation before things blow up. That would be the ideal situation. And then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, there are no winners in a trade war. Even President Trump himself concedes to this and realizes that there will be an impact on American citizens and businesses, which makes you wonder why then he goes ahead with it. But what is this move? What has this move done when it comes to just geopolitics, Prof? Because once again, I think this creates an unpredictable international environment. You've got nations that will struggle to anticipate the U.S. actions. That is complicating diplomatic relations and strategic planning. So how does the world prepare for Trump's America First policies? Because he will be doubling down.
Absolutely. You're raising very important questions. And, Trump can behave in that way, first of all, because he has a lot of support at home. Obviously, he has won the election quite convincingly. Smaller nations or middle-sized nations like South Africa and others rely much more on institutionalized multilateralism. So what we can see, and in some of the reactions to yesterday's, let's call it a fallout from the Trump administration, is that, well, there might be some kind of alliance building and coordination outside of the US. And I guess that will be that trend will get stronger. On the other hand, the fact that Americans are now completely anti-globalist or anti-internationalist, is not a good reason for other countries to also, let's say, cut fundings to the UN, to the opposite. I think what's important now is to make a statement that we are still supporting international organizations. We still want to cooperate with others. So to set a different narrative here, that will, in the long run, I think, also be meaningful. It is meaningful.
Yeah. So
Because most nations need to cooperate with one another. There is no other alternative to it. The US is the US, but others have different priorities.
Yeah. So what does all of this then mean? This unpredictability, this inconsistency, this America First policy. How does it embolden rival powers like China?
Yeah. I wouldn't call it. I don't think Trump is totally erratic or irrational in a way. I mean, what they're doing right now was announced months ago, so this cannot be a surprise. If we are surprised, then this is our mistake. We have to be prepared for this kind of.
He's always followed through on his promises, eh?
Yes, and this time it's actually more serious. They are better prepared. Last time, the first year was fairly chaotic and not that much actually happened. But this time they're better prepared, so we have to be prepared too. But you're right in pointing out, the U.S. is still the largest and most powerful country on this planet, so it can encourage also other states to follow the same pattern. So if the U.S. leaves an organization like the World Health Organization, obviously this puts an enormous hole not only in the budget but also in the momentum politically, right? So and who will fill that gap? So there might be a tipping point when other countries say, "No, if the U.S. is not in the deal, then we are also out." So that's a serious threat also to other multilateral organizations, treaties, agreements, and so on and so forth.
Is this another sign for BRICS countries to solidify their partnership as part of just protecting themselves against whatever consequence of what's likely to come during the next, 4 years?
Well, it's definitely a format where the U.S. is not a member, so it can't disrupt it that much from the inside. That's certainly on the plus. On the other hand, Trump also takes on BRICS and makes comments. So for South Africa, I mean, it's a delicate move of moving in between, not unnecessarily taking up dogfights, provoking the U.S. unnecessarily, and at the same time, of course, nurturing alternative relations. But obviously, if you can't get a proper deal with the U.S., countries would look for other opportunities. BRICS is one grouping here, but for instance, Canadians also have a free trade agreement with the European Union. So in the long run, does the U.S. want to have like a Canada that has stronger trade relations with the EU or with the U.S., right? So,
Prof, thank you so much for making time for us. Professor Malte Brosig is with the Department of International Relations at Wits University. 23 minutes after 7.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.